Good afternoon, friends, and good afternoon to a Friday reflection. I'm going to end this week by going back to where I ended on Tuesday as we weather this storm. Yesterday, when I posted the daily reflection, I hopped in the car and drove to Fresno in less than 2 hours, checked into the hotel, and walked myself over to the state baseball stadium to enjoy the game between the Grizzlies and the Bees. Just think of that for a moment. Bears and bees playing baseball. It's an oddity. But indeed, this was 9.5 innings of perfection. The pitchers were unhittable. There were outstanding defensive plays by both teams. Not a single walk. Now, not one of the 57 consecutive batters got on base. Can you imagine that? Then the Bees brought in a new pitcher to start the bottom of the 10th. And on the first pitch, Mac Williamson, a former River Cat player, sent the Grizzly fans home in absolute joy as he smacked a 410-foot home run over the center field fence. What a night! Well, if you're going to dream, dream big. This morning, as I was sitting in the office, my phone calendar alerted me to the fact that Synod Assembly was beginning at 1 p.m. this afternoon in Fresno, and the traffic on 99 was light, and I could be there in a little over 2 hours. I guess I forgot to cancel Synod Assembly on my phone calendar. If any of those things had happened. Instead, it's another day of trying to make sense of what's going on. I don't know about you, but I feel myself torn by the division within ourselves. It's nothing new. We've been a divided country for an extremely long period of time. I remember the political and cultural divide of the 1960s and early 70s when Vietnam and the race issues were running rampant among us. It was a stormy time. The protests, silent or loud, peaceful or violent, seemed to be a daily occurrence. At times, I feel like I'm back in those years. I'm still conflicted. Back then, one of my friends was very outspoken about the evils of the war in Vietnam. He later declared himself as a conscientious objector when required to sign up for the Selective Service. He did all of the right things for him to accomplish that goal of being a conscientious objector. Another in our high school group was on the opposite side of the spectrum, defending the need for the war. He registered, was drafted, and I've lost touch with him over those years. I recall another of my high school friends memorized Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech for our speech class. After she had presented it, I recall there was some very lively give and take in the class. Some wanted to know, why should you choose it at all? I don't think they were happy with it being used. Others stood with her and shouted support. My pastor shared that his Selective Service records were among those destroyed when protesters took files out of the Catonsville, Maryland Draft Board office and burned them in the parking lot. I remember seeing some of the members of the congregation walking out of the sermon and service at that moment. They thought he was supporting the protest of the activists, when in truth it wasn't the point of the sermon, nor the story that he was sharing. Today, I know folks on both sides of the stay-at-home orders. I'm conflicted about what to do. Yes, I need some of those stores to reopen because I need some new belts and new shoes. But is that a good reason? Have I listened to all sides of the issue? Can I make the best decision? I feel like I'm in a storm and desire to have nice, calm the waters that I had earlier this year, which led me to this. One day he got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let's go across to the other side of the lake." So they put out, and while they were sailing, he fell asleep. A windstorm swept down on the lake, and the boat was filling with water, and they were in danger. They went to him and woke him up, shouting, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he woke up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters. They ceased, and there was calm. He said to them, "Where is your faith?" they were afraid and amazed. Luke's accounting of Jesus storming the wind and sea. That's Luke 8, verses 22 to 25. In that context, the disciples had just finished a long day of learning as Jesus shared parable after parable with them. And obviously, for some reason, they needed to get to the other side of the lake. Was that home? Now, at least 4 of them were fishermen, and I suspect accustomed to being on the water and maybe even having their fair share of stormy waters. Yet, as Luke says, they were afraid. Were they afraid of the storm? Or afraid of what Jesus did? Or both? And how could Jesus be sleeping? Didn't he care about what was happening to the 12, his best friends? Or maybe like those disciples, we too are acting with fear. Fear that we'll never make it out of this alive. Afraid that we've never faced anything like this before and don't know how to act. Afraid that someone else is making all the decisions and we're not in the room where it's happening. Afraid that if or when we get to the other side, it will not be the same as it was before. Afraid we don't know enough. Afraid of what might happen. Afraid of all of it. Yet in my mind, I see Jesus comfortably in the stern of the boat sleeping. Carefree and unafraid. Why? Well, the obvious answer is that he trusted in God so much, or that he knew the outcome. Maybe it is just because he trusted God, and his trust in God is so much greater than our trust in God or others. I've decided that I need to take that page and trust Jesus to calm my raging wind and waters. I need to be calm and trust. Maybe I'll even make a meme like the English memes that I see. Trust. Be calm. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. More of those pictures have shown up in the last couple of days. Thank you. And as always, wash those hands 20 seconds at a time. A couple of times a day, please. Hand lotion is helpful also. Stay home if you're sick. Love one another. Practice that all-important social distancing. And of course, as Sergeant Esterhaus dismisses us, be careful out there.